Lumberjacks is sponsored by Echo, only professional grade with 5-year warranty. Crown, protect, maintain, save. Dickies, quality workwear since 1922. Yamaha, rev your heart.
We're here in the shores of the Bay of Fundy where the tide is out right now, but we have to hurry our way through this opening because it's also on its way back in. We're about an hour outside of Truro, Nova Scotia, where they're hosting the second annual Nova Scotia Lumberjack Championships. And for the second year in a row, a fantastic job put on by organizer Ryan McIntyre. Hi, I'm Bill Deba with my co-host, Lumberjack Sport Analyst Rod Cumberland. Rod, this week we're featuring the standing block chop, the axe throw, and the women's single buck.
Women's single buck, we've got our regular host of characters in that, Janet Walker, Caitlin Carroll, Kelly Cousins. But Kayla Graham, a recent graduate from Dalhousie Agriculture Campus, she'll be a good one to watch in that event.
Now, in the axe throw, typically in the morning, they go through all the preliminaries. We're only going to see the top 6 finalists right now. A good field of strong axe throwers here.
Good axe throwers in the Maritimes, but one guy in particular, the guy that organized the show, Ryan McIntyre, he's off to the World Championships for axe throwing. We expect to see him taking this thing home.
Oh, it's always nice coming out to the Bay of Fundy, where twice each day 160 billion tons of seawater flow in and out of the bay. The tides transform the shorelines, tidal flats, and exposed sea bottom as they flood into the bay and into its harbors and estuaries. And we had a great start to the competition last week here in Truro. Due to a couple of victories by Nathan and Marcel, they're way out in front with 175 points each. But right now, hot in their heels, Ben Cumberland, Jeff Larkin, George Williams, and Trevor Schofield. We're going to be showing the top 4 heats of the standing block chop. The first heat's going to be featuring Scott Reed and Jeff Larkin.
And of course, this show is right in their hometown of Truro, Nova Scotia. Scotty Reed works at the Agriculture College here in Truro. And of course, Jeff Larkin, a graduate student, he is now helping Scotty coach the Woodsman's team there. So we've got a coach helping a coach.
Well, it's one thing being a coach, another thing being an athlete. Of course, you know how to do it, but sometimes you can't put 2 and 2 together and make it add up to 4. Scott Reed chopping through 12 inches around. Jeff Larkin taking him on. Both guys well into the wood, trying to hit their marks. Scott Reed doing a good job hitting his lines.
Scott Reed is actually a pretty strong standing block cutter. He's built like a underhand cutter, but he does a lot better at the standing block here as both guys switch around to side number 2. Jeff Larkin left a lot of wood on the front of his log. That's going to cost him here in the backside.
Well, you saw after 3 or 4 strokes on Scott's backside, he had a hanging piece of wood, cost him a little bit of time. He's running out of gas. He's trying to drive things off right now. Probably going to have to take another chip out of it.
Oh, and a big glancing blow there by Jeff Larkin. That axe went sliding in the air here as Scott Reed gets into the small wood, and Scotty Reed's going to drive things off here with a time of 40.9, and he sets a time to beat.
Big chunk of wood early in the season. We're early in June here. Just give me a critique on that.
Rough. It was very rough. A lot of missed hits. Remembered I should hang my axe, but halfway through helped a lot, and then I picked it up.
Just tell me what your pattern is, your plan is going in. Do you have like a 12 and 12 in mind on this kind of block? Maybe a 12 and 10 or something like that? What your strategy was?
Well, I was talking that over with a fellow teammate, Nathan, awesome chopper, Cumberland. I was going to go 1 up, 1 down, and then I decided it's a pretty firm block, and I'd do 2 up, 2 down. But on my very first hit, missed. Totally missed my line, so it ended up being 3 up.
So going 1 up, 1 down at the beginning and changing that strategy, you know you're in for a long ride.
Oh, yeah, no, I knew I was going to do 2 up originally. I just changed my mind when I got up on stage up there.
Well, Scotty can still actually lower his time quite a bit more if he just works on axe placement a little bit there. His block was loose and wobbling after 1 stroke. He just had to reach over and cut that far wood, and he took another stroke on the near side. So still lots of room for Scotty to improve there. He's getting better all the time as we get set to go here with Trevor Schofield and Ryan McIntyre.
Both Trevor and Ryan are similar choppers. They're both strong young men, but they both need to work on their accuracy. We all know about chopping being speed, strength, and accuracy. You can see the lines there by Trevor, missing a lot of marks. Both guys make their turn exact same time, open up new chips.
And you know, technically, Trevor's actually doing a worse job than Ryan here, but Trevor's using that axe, that kingy axe. He's using the springboard chop, and it's just eating this wood alive. He's getting into the small wood now as Ryan's not too far behind him, but Trevor's getting ready to drive this thing off now, and Trevor Schofield lowers the time to beat with a 32.6 seconds taken down Ryan McIntyre.
Let's talk about your chopping a little bit. You went a long ways on your front side there. You want to make sure you did your homework on the front side, and the axe was moving wood, so you took a while before making your turn.
Yeah, I guess especially hindsight looking at my block now, I definitely went over halfway, but it paid off. I think I did just the opposite of my underhand. Didn't go quite enough, and then didn't want to make the mistake twice.
Yeah, you're going against Ryan McIntyre there, and I was kind of watching him a little bit more because he turned really early, and sometimes that's a mistake, right?
Yeah, it sure is.
Well, we're halfway through the standing block chop here in Truro, Nova Scotia. Trevor Schofield leading the way. We still have 4 excellent choppers still to come after the break.
Truro Nissan is one of Nova Scotia's newest dealerships. We opened the doors in April of 2015. It's fairly large, the county of Colchester and into some of the neighboring counties. Nissan's fairly well represented in Nova Scotia, but they give us a pretty large marketing area. Ryan came into the store one day and started to, I guess, make his pitch about why he thought we should be involved. And I had an idea who he was because of some of the other people he deals with in his Lumberjack career. And the second he said, be involved in the Lumberjack competition, I just stopped him and said, okay, I'm in. Let's do it. It fits very well with how we like to align ourselves. We've worked hard to promote active lifestyle, healthy choices, outdoors. Our community has so many things available to the people that live here to be active and get outside that this was just a perfect fit for us.
And many thanks to Truro Nissan for getting involved, along with all the other sponsors that make this event happen. The 2nd annual Nova Scotia Lumberjack Championships here in Truro. Right now we're halfway through the standing block chop with 2 heats still to come. Right now the time to beat is 32.66 set by Trevor Schofield before the break. Marcel Dupuis and Berlin Nickerson coming up next.
Big heavy hitters here in the Maritime Lumberjack Association. Berlin Nickerson, of course, a lobster fisherman from down in Pubnico, Nova Scotia. Marcel Dupuis, a firefighter from Memramcook, New Brunswick, and they're into this chop.
And look at the speed by Marcel Dupuis. Once again, speed, strength, and accuracy. Marcel's coming on like gangbusters, hitting his marks as well, and hitting the log hard.
Well, Marcel Dupuis opened up a really narrow front. I'm quite surprised at that. Hopefully he went high, which he did. He's got nice high lines here in the back, so he should be able to drive this thing off with little effort at all once he gets into the small wood here now.
And a good pace by Marcel Dupuis. One more chip, and he's ready to drive things off. Berlin Nickerson trying to keep pace. Oh, and a terrible fall there by Marcel. He holds on to his axe, gets back on his feet. One more slip, still trying to drive things off, and Marcel Dupuis sets down a time of 33.10, just edging out Berlin Nickerson in the standing block. Well, let's talk about the obvious first. Just tell me about what happened with the fall there.
Well, I think the first time I might have stepped on a chip. I have corks on just because the floor is slippery. I usually chop with just flat sole shoes. And then I slipped. The second time when I got to readjust, I think I stepped on the metal of the stand and it slipped again. So it's not a very good job.
Well, so it obviously happened when you were ready to dry things off. I counted 12 and 15. It looked like you were ready to go 12 and 12, maybe 12 and 13, but then that happened.
Yeah, that was kind of the plan. I was gearing myself to put a big hit in, and I slipped. I thought it was going to come off that hit. But anyway, that's the luck of the draw today.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, still the time of 32.66 set by Trevor Schofield before the break is time to beat right now. This is the last heat. Ben Cumberland taking on big brother, little brother Nathan Cumberland.
But he's a lot bigger in stature, and he swings a mean axe. As we get started here in the standing block shop, both guys have good axes to use in this wood as they both get into the smaller wood right off the bat after 4 strokes.
Fantastic speed and accuracy there by Ben Cumberland, but where he's losing to his younger but bigger brother is in the strength department. Nathan's already over his backside as Ben makes his turn.
Ben obviously had a little bit firmer block because he put 3 drivers up to make sure he got the work done in the front. As he gets into the smaller wood on the backside here, Nathan's getting ready to drive things off here, and Nate Cumberland lowers the time to beat. He's going to win the standing block chop with a 24.4.
Big race with brother Ben, always a good show. Just tell me about your block in general. You mentioned it was hard.
Yeah, the wood we have here today, as always at Truro, we draw for the wood, so you never know what you're going to get. My block was a little bit firmer than I expected, so I just adjusted my pattern, and instead of going 8 in the front like I had planned, I went an extra 9, 10, put a chip hit in another driver in the far.
And you're obviously hitting your marks there. To be able to get it off in 9 and 10 is a good feat.
Yeah, I've practiced the standing block a lot more than any of my other chopping events, and it typically shows in my lines, so just very blessed today.
Trevor Schofield in an earlier heat with that sloppy chop was good enough for 3rd place here today. 1 and 2 go to the Cumberland boys with younger brother Nathan taking first.
Closed captioning is brought to you by 1867 Confederation Log and Timber Frame, Canada's leader in log and timber frame homes since 1979. This is living.
being a Canadian champion and all that, a lot of people think it's all glamorous and $1 million and stuff like that. But the fact is that you do travel a lot, and it's a great fun. You meet a lot of great people. You see a lot of different communities and places, which is beautiful, which I didn't have the opportunity to do that before. But there is definitely a cost to all this traveling. And that's why you go try to get some sponsorship. That's why I was so lucky to get the Pump House Brewery to be sponsoring me. And then I'm trying to get all the exposure that I can for that company, because without these sponsors, I would not be able to do all this traveling and compete. People that I work with are super good, because I trade shift and I get my holidays and stuff like that switched over, because all these competitions are on a weekend, which happens to be on some of my shifts. So I got to try to get time off and all that. And a lot of people, for me, to be able to compete in this series, or Lumberjack competition in general, and try to get better, because I want to hit as many competitions as possible. There's a lot of people that have a hand into me, helping me to go to all these contests and trading shift, and somebody working for me, and I still have to have a full-time job because I'm not making a living out of doing these Lumberjack sports.
And certainly those sentiments are echoed by all the athletes here and all over the world that participate in Lumberjack sports. They're doing it for the passion, not necessarily for the money. Most of them are going to Monday to Friday, 9-to-5 jobs, and they travel for miles upon miles to get to these competitions all over North America. Right now we're heading into the women's single buck, and we're showing you the top 3 heats. This first heat, a couple of relative newcomers to the sport. Cameron Finley taking on Megan McKinley.
Well, both these girls are still students at their respective colleges. Cameron Finley's still at the Dalhousie Agricultural Campus being trained by Janet Walker. Megan McKinley's still a student at the University of New Brunswick. And actually, both of their coaches here are wedging for them. You see Megan McKinley, this is probably the first time she's ran a competition blade, having a really hard time getting started here. But Cameron Finley's getting into the middle part of her block.
And one of the keys to success, of course, in the single buck is keeping that saw straight and smooth. Cameron Finley on the left-hand side doing a good job. You can see keeping the saw relatively straight, not letting the nose dive down towards the bottom.
Yeah, Cameron's doing everything right. Big, long strokes. Megan McKinley, again, here, she's just learning how to do it, but she's nice and smooth right now as she's getting into the thicker part of the block, and Cameron Finley's down in the small one. It's not going to take long here. Cameron Finley drives things off, and she sets a time to beat in the women's single buck with a 36.1.
Cameron, I know some of the rules in single buck are use as much of the blade as possible. You were doing a great job pulling the blade all the way back, but were you reaching enough into the log to get that last foot, 12 inches?
No, single bucks is something I've been trying to really work on, and pushing my saw all the way to the wood. So it's one thing I've been really working on. Today I didn't go all the way in, but pulls are good.
Now, during that heat, what was Janet Walker telling you?
Tell her to keep going and push all the way to the wood, pull all the way back, keep it steady.
You can see by the replay there that Cameron's not quite pushing the saw all the way to the log. She's not using another 6 to 8, maybe 12 inches of saw. It certainly could be cutting wood.
No question at all. And in this heat here, Kelly Bonus is actually running a blade that she got the first time here last year in Truro. It's a Tuatai blade from New Zealand. She has a little bit of hang at the top, but Kelly's had a whole year to practice with this thing, and she's running it really well.
She's very, very aggressive with the saw right now. 36.18 is time to be set by Cameron Finley in the first heat. Look at Jessie Swinemer on the left-hand side. Looks like she's struggling a little bit. Kelly Bonus really working hard to get things done. A little bit of a struggle there by hanging a raker.
Well, Kelly's in the small wood now. That's the second time she's actually hung this off. Third time she had a hard time getting it off, but she has a new time to beat at 26.99 in the women's single buck.
Kelly, you're a good sawyer, and that saw was really dropping, but you struggled a lot. Was it because you weren't keeping it flat?
Yeah, I was changing my angle a lot, and I struggle with that. I try to practice to get past it, but some days are better than others.
I mean, it's a tough art to perfect, and well, some people maybe are perfect, but just tell me about the difficulties of keeping it flat.
Well, when you pull back, the saw it's the weight changes, of course, because it's heavier on one end than the other. So you tend to drop it on one side, and then when you go ahead, the same thing happens. Your nose drops into the wood, and then you jam up.
Kelly makes a really good point there that running these single bucks, it looks like they're just pulling them back and forth, but they're actually putting pressure on that handle in 2 different directions on the push and the pull stroke. So they do have to be quite perfect. And of course, Kelly's running a 2-pagan raker, and they're a lot more sensitive to those change in angles.
Well, we're heading into our last heat. Janet Walker taking on Caitlin Carroll. Time to beat 26.99, set in the last heat. This is a great battle right here between 2 arch rivals.
Yep, we have Janet Walker on the right. We have Caitlin Carroll on the left. They're nick and tuck right now. They're both getting into the big part of the wood, doing a great job using the whole blade. Caitlin Carroll could use a little bit more of hers, but it's cutting really fast.
It's really dropping through that wood. Part saw, part Sawyer. Janet really struggling on the right-hand side. Caitlin Carroll's about to finish things off, and Caitlin Carroll wins the women's single buck with a time of 25.73. Caitlin, always a good race with Janet Walker there, but your consistency and your speed was very consistent all the way through.
Yeah, I think today I had a good cut. I've been trying to train, and today it paid off. I had a good run with that saw. It's the first time I pulled it all year.
I mean, we have 18 inches here. It's a big diameter. Not all of the shows have that big a wood.
I find bigger wood's actually easier for most women to cut. More of the saw is actually held up with that, so there's less chance for us to change our angle, drop the nose, which usually causes most of us to hang up. So worked for me today.
Well, in a great field of competitors here at the Nova Scotia Lumberjack Championships, the women's single buck is now over. Caitlin Carroll just edging out Kelly Bonus by just over a second.
Power on and on. Echo.
When purchasing an Echo chainsaw, one must consider its primary use. Are you felling or bucking? Are you trimming or limbing? Are you cutting firewood? We have two types of handle configurations. We have top handle saws used primarily by arborists and professionals. You can see that it's a tight, confined space for usages up in a bucket or up in a tree. The rear handle configuration comprises about 95% of chainsaws and is more well-balanced, easier to use for all end users. Second consideration is engine size. 30 to 40 cc chainsaws are for weekend warriors, lighter duty use. 40 to 60 cc chainsaws are heavier duty cutting, maybe some professional applications. 60 plus cc chainsaws for professional loggers with heavy application use. Bar length is also taken into consideration when you're looking at the size of what you're primarily cutting, whether it's a 12 or a 14-inch log. You want to make sure that your bar length is 1 to 2 inches longer than that diameter of that wood. When you're looking at purchasing a chainsaw, one of the more important factors would be your warranty. And with Echo, we have one of the industry's best 5-year consumer warranties.
Hey, we're back here in Truro, Nova Scotia for the second annual Nova Scotia Lumberjack Championship. So far, we've seen a lot of sawing and chopping action. We're going to change gears a little bit, and we are heading into the axe throw. Earlier today, all 30 competitors competed in the axe throw preliminaries. We've whittled it down to the top 3 competitors, starting with Berlin Nickerson, scoring years of 5-4, 3-2, and 1. And looks like, Rod, there's going to be a little bit of problem with that one.
Yeah, in the MLA, the rule says that only the leading edge counts. If both tips hit, it's actually a 0 or disqualified throw. So poor Berlin, he gets a 0 for throw number 1.
Well, you can see Darren Colford, the head judge, letting him know that. Looks like he got a bullseye in that throw. Good comeback there by Berlin Nickerson as he heads into throw number 3. Although it looks like the head judge is going to talk to Berlin again, and I think he's talking about stepping over the line.
Yeah, and actually, I've judged Berlin before. Berlin actually he's really close to stepping over the line every time he throws. You can see he leads in with his throw. That one, there's a score of 4 on his third throw. So, yeah, it's always plaguing Berlin because he comes so close. He leans ahead a lot, and he's very close to going over the line all the time when he throws. And I think the judge called him on that on his second throw.
Well, after throw number 1 being a 0, throw number 2 ended up being a 0 for stepping over the line. Throw number 3 comes in with a good solid 4 points for a 3-throw total of 4. That's not going to get him in the money as we head into Mike Zwicker, an axe thrower from what I'm told, the Timber Lounge.
Yeah, this is one of the only events that Mike does at the in the Maritime Lumberjack Association. First time I met him was here in Truro. And he does do a lot of axe throwing down in Halifax at the Timber Lounge, and this is the first time he's actually tried it at an MLA competition. Good throw there. He actually scores a 3.
Throw number 2, he bears down, and looks like he's got a 4 there. You can see the sap coming out of the target, which means they're good, moist targets there. They're provided by the Timber Lounge, and right now, Mike Zwicker's got a 2-throw total of 7, heading to his last throw. He could get a good score here.
He's actually in the lead right now if his nerves don't get to him. Oh, but that's the Achilles heel in axe throwing is letting your nerves get to you. And Mike Zwicker in his first professional competition, it does happen. He drifts down for a 1.
Well, looking at the replay here, he certainly does look relaxed, and he throws it in there for a first throw total of 3, and then he fires another 4 to give him a 2-throw total of 7, but it's in the third throw, which often happens with axe throwers, is that's when they really tense up.
And that happened here. Of course, he threw a 1. So, but even still, right now he's in the lead in the axe throw with a 3-throw total of 8 points.
Here we are in Jeff Larkin, a seasoned axe thrower from the Nova Scotia Agricultural College, and that's going to be close to a 3 or 4. Looks like Darren Culford's going to zero in on that, and he's given him a 5 for a nice cushion there, as he only needs a couple of reasonable throws to take the lead on this one.
And there's a reasonable throw. That's a 4 for Jeff Larkin's second throw. 2-throw total right now of 9, so it's all his. This third throw is just money in the bank.
Nice and relaxed is the way to go. Here's throw number 3, looking for a bullseye. He gets a 4 for a 3-throw total of 13. Jeff Larkin wins the axe throw. A couple of things you do differently there. You shoot from about 21.5 feet. Why so far back from the throw line?
It's just something I kind of taught myself, because whenever I was too close to the line, this part of my axe would actually hit the wood. So I'd never stick in the target, so I'd bring myself back from rotation. It's perfect for me.
So it's a long-term thing that you've been doing that, I guess. And the other thing you do is you always seem to touch the back of the axe head with your nose. Is that a luck thing?
Superstition, I guess. It gets myself lined up with that target.
Well, we have a lot of good axe throwers here at the Nova Scotia Lumberjack Championships. Jeff Larkin was the class of the field. Unfortunately, a few of the others struggled in the finals.
And the crown pivotal point today is Janet Walker from Truro, Nova Scotia. She actually struggles in the event. She usually dominates, only taking 5th place in the single buck and putting her down in the standings.
Well, 2/3 of the way through the competition here in Nova Scotia, Nathan Cumberland's leading the way. Marcel Dupuis only 75 points behind, with a few others still in the chase.
Well, the Lumberjack of the day today is Darren Casey, good old UNB Lumberjack buddy of mine. He's pushing the 50 mark pretty hard, and he's in the top 5 with the 2nd place finish in the axe throw event.
And they've come a long way for a 2nd annual event here in Truro, Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotia Lumberjack Championships. Come back again next week when it'll be time for Lumberjacks.
Lumberjacks is sponsored by Echo, only professional grade with 5-year warranty. Crown, protect, maintain, save. Dickies, quality workwear since 1922. Yamaha, rev your heart.
In lumberjack sports, we're always talking about the gear and how expensive it is. Axles will set you back about $800, crosscut saws $2,000. But it's actually how you look after the tools once you're done using them on stage that makes a whole lot of difference. This here is an old beater axe, but it serves a purpose to show that if you don't look after stuff and maintain it well, it doesn't take too long before it gets grungy and rusty and won't perform up to its maximum potential. So what I do when I'm done with my saws and axes, I try to get that pitch and gum, whatever you use it in, pine or poplar, you want to get that off of your blade and actually treat it with something like Crown lubricant. It has no solvents in it, so it doesn't cause rust. We just spray our gear down before we put it away. It'll last a whole lot longer.